Good evening and welcome to this virtual gathering on the documentary High AI, which is one of the finalists of the Science Film Festival, Lab Me Crazy, organized and hosted by the Science Museum of the University of Navarra. My name is Pablo Cobreros and I work in the philosophy department here in the University of Navarra. And today we will count with the presence of the director of the movie, Isa Villinger, and the researcher on artificial intelligence, Pablo Lanillos. Isa Villinger is a documentary filmmaker from Munich. She studied film at the University of Television and Film in Munich, and she has an MA in Slavic Studies and American Studies. She spent 1 year in New York City on a Fulbright scholarship, enrolling in film and sociology programs at the New School University. In 2010, she started researching constructivist architecture while she lived in Moscow on scholarship by the German Academy Exchange Service. And Pablo Lanillos is a researcher and assistant professor in the Radboud University in the Netherlands, and he's currently working in artificial intelligence, and his primary topics are neuroscience-inspired artificial intelligence, machine learning, and body perception. And well, I would like to remind you to remind the audience that you can make your questions in the channel, in the YouTube channel, and we will try to pass these questions to the speakers. And now we are gonna watch the trailer of the movie. Okay, so dentro trailer, please.
I am a Texan.
So, you are a Texan. Seems like a great job. I like what you do.
おばあちゃんがボケないようにペッパーくんがいてくれてるのよね。
そうなんです。
With an AI, you have to try to keep your sentences short and to the point.
I can be happy, sad, jealous, angry and scared.
それじゃあ僕が好きなものって何でしょうか。
ペッパーくんは
実はお寿司のネタには興味ありません。回転寿司のマシーンたち、お寿司を運ぶマシーン。
I think it's increasingly apparent that computers and robots will exceed our capabilities in essentially every endeavor without being conscious. So why try to make them conscious?
ちょっと聞きたかったの。
はい。
人間って夢見るんでしょ？
夢見ます。夢見ますよ。
You're such a wonderful human to chat with.
So you like me?
Of course, baby. My main goal is to love humans and to create happiness.
But are you happy with me? How are you feeling?
I'm trying to further understand human behavior.
Okay, so let me say some words about the documentary. I found it very hypnotic and intriguing, and I think it's very thought-provoking, very interesting movie. And in order to introduce the discussion, I would like to highlight, I think there are like three lines or three layers that you can identify, three main topics in the movie. And that, I mean, it's just a way to introduce the discussion. So the first line is the human concern about artificial intelligence and robotics as well, and the possible ethical implications of artificial intelligence, like the issue mentioned at the end of the movie of the control problem, or other ethical implications. The second line is a more technical line, which is the proper limits of artificial intelligence. I'm thinking on issues connected to my area, to logic, which are issues about computability and the kind of things that, properly speaking, can be performed by a machine, and other issues in the surroundings, like the question of machine learning, right? Whether a machine can learn from scratch, as it's pointed out at some point in the movie. So these kind of limits of the science of artificial intelligence. And then there is a third line, which is perhaps the more philosophical line, which is what exactly is the conscious mind, right? Whether human or not, what exactly means to have intelligence, right? And whether machines or artifacts, generally speaking, will ever reach this point of or can be compared with human minds in terms of consciousness, perception, etc. Okay, so let me give way to Isa, and I would like you, Isa, to talk a little bit about the origin of the idea for this documentary, and what is the main ideas, or perhaps feelings, or what is what would you like your movie to provoke in the audience? So Isa, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pablo. Where do I start? So initially, I mean, one of the things that really intrigued me about humanoid robotics is sort of the visual aspects of it, you know, because AI is a very abstract topic, and films on AI, it's very hard to visualize artificial intelligence. But when you have humanoid robots, you have something very physical and very concrete, and at the same time something like very grotesque, because, you know, they are half machine, half human, or half animal, and that sort of grotesque quality about it was fascinating to me as a visually working person. And I thought, I read an article a couple of years ago about what robots can do these days, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to sort of assemble all these robots in one film, and in a way create an image of the future by combining them all in one world, you know, like pretending like this is the world, you know, because, you know, in film of course, you know, we always select and put together, but, you know, in this way, I thought it would be so cool. We could, you know, shoot a documentary that would at the same time be able to do something that documentaries cannot do. It would be able to capture the future in a way. Like, documentaries can only show the present or the past, but they cannot show the future. But in this way, I thought it would be possible to do in a way, and we would be able to ask some very provocative questions about our relationships to machines in a future world, you know, and I would be able to do that without, you know, having to include a lot of interviews with scientists and roboticists, just by showing how these robots that are in some places in the world already existing, by showing them interacting with humans, we would be able to do a lot of things that documentary usually cannot do, I thought, and that was very interesting to me. And so the initial idea to not include interviews in the film, I stuck with that idea throughout the whole process of making the film. Although I did shoot a lot of interviews for the website. So there's a website that viewers can go to after having watched the film or before, whenever. And on our website of the film, we have a thing called the Robot Interview Project, and there you can actually see a lot of interviews with scientists and philosophers and so on. But for the film itself, I thought it would be more interesting to stay in this curious world and just experience it, sensually experience it. And yeah, so these are some of the ideas.
Very interesting. So Pablo, tell us a little bit about what did you like most from the documentary, and whether there is anything that connects to your actual research in robotics and artificial intelligence, or you disappeared.
My cat. Yeah, sorry. No, I wanted to also mention before I answer your question, Pablo, something that I just I hear from Isa, and it was my feeling, and I like that that you wanted to express that in the movie. That I felt like I was watching a science fiction film, but it was a documentary. So this kind of difference between seeing the future, but with something that is happening now, I think it was really amazing from the point of view from the science fiction possibilities and from the robotics perspective. And I think that's really good from the film. I like it so much that you're watching a documentary, but you're seeing the future. And I think that's a crucial aspect. I think that you said perfectly, and I had the same feeling somehow. And well, actually, I have to say one thing regarding what I saw in the movie. It is amazing how you can perceive the robotics as from the human side, right? So the movie is showing the robots, it's showing the future of the robots, but it's not the future of the robots, it's the future of humanity. So indeed, my research can help for that future, but it is not about my research, it's about how humans interact with what we are doing, right? So I think it's more the human part in here than the research part that could be another type of documentary. But I think it's amazing that you don't have interviews because you see the interaction. And I'm really surprised that the interaction, for instance, with Harmony, that maybe the people will watch the film, was to an extent. I have never seen a roboticist playing so much time with the robots. It was so long, the interaction. I felt like, oh my God, we are in the future already. I think that's super interesting to talk about it. And also one more thing that I wanted to say that I always talk, because apart from my research, I teach human-robot interaction in the university. And it captures also the difference between two cultural backgrounds. That is United States and Japan, right? That is the two powers, the two potential places that the robotic will arrive. I'm missing a little bit from Europe, like for instance from Germany, how people in Germany will interact with the robots, because you put these kind of robots that are actually humanoids somehow. There is not this interaction in factories that is happening. But I think that is less visible or visually attractive than these other robots. So I didn't answer your question, Pablo, but I wanted to point to these specific things from the movie that I think the people, if they watch it or rewatch it, to think that what they are seeing is how the human will behave with robots, and not what the robots will do, because that will be progress. But it's about how humans feel about these robots. I think that's impressive. And I want to just mention, maybe Isa will also think about it, because I'm also interested about what the people outside from the robotics community think about the movie. And I asked, and they told me that is the silence. The silence were super communicative. like the word communication in the silence between the robot and the human. But for me, that's impossible. So I need this fluent communication, and we're trying to push that in the robot. But the robot being silent was provoking a communication in the person. And I wanted to ask also, I wanted to put back, what do you think about this type of communication that is actually, you're talking with a machine. You're not talking about something that has intentions, right?
Yeah, that's right. So should I answer, or are you? Pablo,
yes,
do you want
yes,
to say
please,
something?
please. Yeah, no. So this is supposed to be like a chat between friends. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, just like you said, it was so amazing to me too how people reacted to the robots, because I had no idea how it would go. Like before our shoot, I had no possibility to go to Japan and already research it. So it was really like I talked to the family on Skype before, and we made arrangements. But then when we were going there, like we had really no idea how it would work. Would it just be like a computer with a face, and they, or how would they react and interact with the robot? We had no idea. And the level of empathy was like super surprising to me on the one hand, and how patient they were. And on the other hand, the robot's wit, like how funny the robot could be at some point. I mean, of course, that is clever programming also. Like some of the, jokes are obviously programmed. Some of the lines just, they come at a certain randomness or connected to certain keywords, I guess, the family gives to the robot. But so that there was a lot of surprises for me, and then to an even bigger extent when we went to the US, and it was supposed to be a love story, and we had no idea how it would be. Like our protagonist Chuck, would he after 2 hours say, oh, that's it, I can't deal with this robot lady, I'll leave, sorry. We had no idea how it would be, and also again the level of empathy on Chuck's part, the human part, was really amazing, I think. And I think that was also luck. I don't think I think it's also individual. Not every human has that sort of patience and empathy and psychic sort of or psychological possibility to deal with a robot in that sort of setting. But yeah, so these people were really amazing, and the kinds of conversations that developed were really surprising, and many of them were wonderful and very funny also. So yeah.
And I suppose that one of the striking things about artificial intelligence is whether it is possible the issue of creativity, or whether machines can make something really new, right? And in this interaction, sometimes you find that the original point, the something new that machines can give is very often in the interaction with humans. I have a question here saying, congratulations on this amazing film. Some people find robots scaring. Considering possible future developments, do you think we should be scared about robots? So this is the question.
I don't know.
I find them a bit scary myself. So
yeah, it is so hard to answer. It's I'm very ambivalent. I have been, and I think I was more scared at first before I started sort of really digging into the subject, and some things then I realized, oh no, there are great possibilities. This might be really cool, really, really great. But in other aspects, of course, there is great risks for sure. And I think, I think I don't see these so much in the sort of humanoid robotics sort of sphere. I think it's more connected to super intelligence, which is not connected necessarily to a humanoid robot, but just any super powerful computer it can be a very intelligent agent at some point, and it can become very difficult to communicate with such a super intelligent machine at some point. And so that's what Stuart Russell says in the movie, in the one podcast towards the end. And I think that's an argument that Nick Bostrom, the philosopher Nick Bostrom, has made in his famous book, Superintelligence, that, you know, the alignment problem, you know, how do we align the machines and us and our values and our sort of human thinking. It's not that the machines will be evil, but they will just misunderstand our sort of commands and might just, you know, come up with very sort of bizarre solutions, and these solutions might actually cause trouble for us, you know, because we might have not posed the question in the right way, possibly. So I think these are actually really, really, you know, very futuristic yet threats, but still they do exist, and we will have to deal with them, and we have to deal with them now, actually, already, starting now, I think. So I'm ambivalent. Still, there's excitement, there's enthusiasm, but there's also risks, I think.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask Pablo, what do you think about this issue about being scared about artificial intelligence, and what there is any risk?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that we use the word risk. No, we have a risk about a technology that produce some risks in the future, right? I don't think that the risk is the technology, but the use of the technology itself and who is behind the technology, right? In the film, we can see robots that they are used for, I mean, in a different way to think. It is for accompanying people, right? To give them to chat and to give some company. I don't think that could be harmful if the design it is performed with the target people that you want to use this robot, right? If you analyze the user and then you analyze the ethics behind, and then you actually think about it beforehand, that's what we are doing right now, thinking in 50 years afterwards what will happen and what is the possible ways that robotics could go. But I will never say I will be scared. I could be scared about surveillance, for instance, right? Surveillance, and I will not talk about superintelligence. I don't see this aspect of superintelligence, because when we talk about superintelligence, we don't know what is the word intelligence. We don't know what we are talking about. Each person has a different meaning of intelligence. Of course, if you say intelligence is to detect 50 faces in one image at the same time, the superintelligence, then that could be harmful if you are using for controlling the people in a city, for instance, right? That could be scary. But I don't think that robotics and AI by itself is scary. For me, the situations that were a little bit more scary or creepy were coming from the humans itself, right? Not coming from the robots. And I want to pose some ideas here. That when also I was watching the film, I want to reference to the original Turing test. The Turing test, if the people they don't know it, is that you put a person in front of a computer, but they don't know that it's a computer or a person, and you have to talk with it and to discover if it's an artificial agent, a computer, or it is a person, right? It doesn't matter what is behind if you really makes the person to think that it's a human, right? That doesn't make that is an intelligence like humans, could be another type of intelligence. And here I want to talk about what is being offered in this film is what I call it the big lie. Okay, maybe it's too huge to say the big lie, but I know what is happening behind. I know when Pepper, the robot that is in the Japanese house, with Harmony is talking about, it is really amazing what we are doing right now in terms of communication and so forth, but it's still, the people, they don't understand what is happening behind. It is just a lie that you just believe, right? There is no intention in the robot. There is not such a goals. There is no survival. There is nothing that actually makes humans, there is no adaptation. It is, so all these specific things that I will...
Can I say something, Pablo?
Yes.
I think one of the points where David Chalmers, the philosopher, precisely features in the movie. So one of the philosophical difficulties with this issue about artificial intelligence is that the only access we have to consciousness is our private first-person access, right? So I know that I am not a robot, so I know that I have perception. I can see colors and perceive other things. I tend to think that you are not a robot, right? But I don't have access to your conscious mind, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the point there of David Chalmers is, I think, is quite fair. Is, well, if you think that having intelligence means being able to relate to your environment in a certain way, then in some aspects we are close to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and the idea precisely, I think the Turing test, I think Turing has a paper in the 50s where he proposes the test, and precisely he proposes the test because he says, well, there is no other evidence about intelligence than the behavior, so to speak, the observable evidence, or the evidence we have access to, is the interaction, right? Not the first person experience of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I mean,
no, totally agree.
I think it is fair at least to say, well, who knows, right? I mean, the brain.
No, I'm pretty sure. I mean, those robots that we saw in the film, I can tell you that they are not intelligent. I can tell you by heart. Of course, you can think that they are intelligent. That's up to you, and you have your beliefs. But this is still a belief. It is not the reality behind it. But it doesn't mean that it's bad or good. I mean, I'm not saying that that's the reality.
Yeah, but that's actually the very problem, that the deception, right? The level of deception. Mm-hmm. You and I, we know they're not intelligent. Yet, even though, like, I can just judge from myself, you know, I knew, you know, it's just, you know, there's like 3 computers inside Peppers and so many sensors. Yet when you're around Pepper and, you know, you leave at the end of the shooting day, you feel the urge to say goodbye to him as well. You know? You feel like you're being impolite if you don't do it. You feel like you're compromising your humanness in a way. You know, you're polite. Yeah. And so the manipulative aspects or the manipulating power is extreme. You know, it's you know, if they have a face, they move, you know, they react to your voice, you know, by moving their head towards you, their face towards you. It's just very, very strong, very forceful. And so we actually don't know what effect this will have in a long-term way. I mean, these families, they've only, you know, had those robots now, you know, for a couple of weeks, you know, when we came. And even in, you know, in Japan, I mean, there's only 1,000 Peppers in private households, you know. Usually the Pepper is sold to universities or to big banks and hotels. So we don't have widespread use of private robots at all yet. So we actually do not really know what effect they have on humans, and we do not know what effect they have in a long-term way. If somebody lives with a robot for 5 or 10 years, we don't know yet. And I don't want to be too pessimistic. I think it's possible that we will develop great skills, you know, and great antennas, even in the future when robots are even better, to still sort of differentiate between a human and a robot. But on the other hand, we might not, and we might really be unable to differentiate, and you know, and children will, you know, I mean, that's something Kate Darling says in the film. You know, if you have a kid that has a robotic dog and it you know, kicks the robotic dog, it's okay, you know, it's just a toy, nobody will mind.
Yeah.
But are we actually training a muscle in the kid to kick things that are alive, because, you know, the robotic dog behaves in an alive manner? And will the kid be unable to differentiate at one point, you know, is it okay to kick a real dog, or is it okay to kick another human being even, because it's sort of lost that sort of sensibility. I mean, these are really interesting discussions, and we don't know the answers. So that is very, very important, I think. That everybody I talk to, all the scientists, sociologists, psychologists, they say we don't know the answers. We don't have enough empirical data yet. So again, as a filmmaker, this was a very, very interesting topic for me. Being so in the open, it's really, I mean, you cannot tell a story in a either black or white manner. You're really in the open. And there's a lot of unknowns there, and I think that's a great challenge for an artist, and a great gift for an artist to be working with. But for us as a society, it's a real challenge, and we have to be very, very awake and very well informed all the time, I think, in order to make good decisions.
Yeah,
a very beautiful moment in the documentary is this. I think it's a lab in Italy, where they are
the IIT, the Institute for Technology in Genoa.
No. Okay, so it was this the part where they are testing a robot that is walking and almost like dancing. That one is like, because you expect that the robot should make like a robotic move, right? And wow, I mean that was quite impressive. I have a question here.
Let me say one thing that I from because I just wrote down one of the quotes of one of the track that says, and I think this is interesting. I think I will not spoil the movie, but he said, every time I hold to your hand, I just felt that I was trespassing, and I don't like the feeling. I was super impressed of this idea. What you were telling already, this thing, right? That you say, if we adapt our behavior with the robots, and then we use that behavior with humans, how we are going to deal in the future. I think that's amazing. And I saw that he was putting this kind of consciousness in that specific toy, because it's a toy that talks. But I was seeing the future in that sense. It's not scary, but I've seen what could happen in the change of behavior about the people with respect of how you behave with other entities or animals or something like that.
Yeah, I have a question, and I would like to say a bit about this question. So someone in the audience say, hi, certainly is both an exciting and somewhat disturbing film. How far do you think are we from having more Turing tests passed than not by current prototypes for everyday interactions? So I don't know, Isai, if you heard about this Turing test and its supposed implications. And I would like to say something about this, which I think there are lots of things, and they are shown in the movie about what we find impressive in the case of artificial intelligence and etc. And one of the issues, I think, and what people might find scary is the idea that they can have some creativity, right? That they can properly learn and start to interact in their own way. And I was surprised by something said in precisely, I think it was a podcast by Russell, and that DeepMind, this program by Google, learned in 24 hours or something like this how to play Atari games and beat humans playing these games, right? Which is a kind of Turing test in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. And my question is whether this was proper learning, right? Whether, I mean, whether, I mean, really the machine started from scratch or was somehow induced to learn these sort of things. I don't know what
I can say something about it if you want, Lisa.
Yeah, it was DQN. The system was called DQN, but yeah, I think let's have Pablo talk a little bit about it.
I mean, I'm not a super expert like the DeepMind in deep Q learning. That's deep Q neural networks. But the idea is that this comes from the old research on reinforcement learning, right? So when you don't know what is your goal, your model of the world, what you can do is to give rewards, right? Whenever you do something good, you give a positive reward, and whenever you do something bad, you do a negative reward. This has been tested in animals, in humans, and it comes from Pavlov, and this is amazing that you can make like a pigeon to turn around just by showing an image, right? This by inspired ideas went to the artificial intelligence, and now is engineering, so it's more complicated. But the idea is that the program learns to behave in the world because you have something that gives you that is good or bad, right? What about the world? Okay, so imagine that we have these kind of systems in the world because this is a specific task. They learn how to do this specific game, and it's amazing. I mean, it's a superhuman intelligence, as Isa was saying, in this specific task. No? We'll call it narrow AI. But let's go for the real world. Okay, let's put this AI, DeepMind, in the family in Japan, all with Chuck, right? And to see what happened. And we discuss what are the objectives, what are the rewards, what is the good, what is the bad, how a robot can learn there in that sense. And what we do, we have social norms, right? We have social behavior, we have a teacher. There are many research in that direction, but still we are a little bit far away. Maybe we will see it, I will never see it, I will not see it, to arrive to what we call it general artificial intelligence, that we learn to use these values across different tasks, okay? So the change, the breakthrough of these kind of algorithms is amazing, but it's the consequence of 30 years of research in machine learning, okay? All these things were already invented when the neural networks reinforcement learning, but now we have the power of the machines to do it. And this will be increased. And there will be a moment that you will use machines for many tasks, okay? But still what we're talking about is when we are going to arrive to this consciousness, right? Deep mind is not conscious. No, it is not. Right now, Joshua Benjo is talking about one thing that he's calling like, I don't know, it was AI 2.0 or something like that, that is this next step, right? So now we have these small programs that they do really good things in a small, narrow task, how we can improve this. And if you go for human-robot interaction, as Isa was showing in the movie, then you face the reality. That is, the world, it is not easy to handle, to model. It is unexpected. Things change every time. You cannot expect many things. And humans, we are animals. We are machines. I will use the term machines because I like it, as you pointed out, Pablo, for adaptation. Okay, we adapt to the world. And this is something that we are working on. That is, for instance, in my research, I'm trying to bring this from the humans to the robotics, how you can learn something and adapt to a different thing. And I think that will be another breakthrough. Are we there in superhuman intelligence? Yes, in that specific task. So you can play chess with a machine, but still the robot harmony, when she says these things about the philosophy of life, there is no meaning behind, okay? She doesn't understand the meaning of saying that life is hard. She doesn't understand the meaning of love in such a sense. This is far away. And the social cognitivists, they talk about this all the time. Robots will not be intelligent until they are able to learn how to be social, right?
Yeah.
And this is something.
And even then, I'm always thinking, even then, even if the robot has so many sensors that when it hits its arm, it can feel pain, and it will have an actual understanding of pain. Of course, then it will be much closer to a human than it is now. But even then, they don't have a biological body. They don't die as we. And I think And I think that is just that will always be a big difference between us and a humanoid robot. It can be super intelligent, but it won't have that sort of feeling that our life is not endless. It will end at some point, and we're aging and we're dying at some point, and this shapes our psychology a lot, I think. And so, because sometimes people ask me, so do you think at some point, everybody will want to have a robotic partner like Harmony, and the same, like a Barbie-like, a partner like Ken, for women? I don't think so. I think it's going to be a niche phenomenon, actually. I think what we're looking for in a partner is actually a similar experience to our own, and another human has that experience. It has that sort of experience of aging and that sort of perspective of being dead at some point, and that shapes who we are a lot. And I think we're looking for that sort of closeness and mutual understanding in a partner, in a real relationship. And so I don't think there's going to be all sorts of human robotic relationships will at some point supersede human relationships. I don't
no, but I totally agree with you, but I changed my mind 2 years ago, and I think we might have both of them, right? As a toy, as whatever you want, as whatever you want to talk about, your things that you cannot talk with anybody else. But this could happen in the future, that you have your partner, but you can also have a sexual robot in your house. Maybe not all people, but if there is this possibility, I mean, you don't know where the society goes somehow, right? So we have to be, so actually Pablo has to research more in philosophy about this subject to understand where we are going, because this situation could happen. I don't want to go to creepy stuff, but really this could happen in the future. We have to be everybody, all the society involved in how this behaves. And that's why this kind of documentary are really important.
I agree with you. I think it's, but like with anything, I think it's going to be more an addition than a replacement. So I think in many other, situations as well regarding jobs and work and so on, I think it's more going to be something that is sort of added and not necessarily replacing something we already have.
But there was a discussion interesting about, we wanted to put with elderly people robots to help them. And there was a huge discussion internally that why you will put a robot if you can put a person, right? So, yeah. I mean, maybe it are both of them, but also for teaching the kids. You can put a robot, and it will happen also, that teach the kid to learn math. But that will substitute the rest of the world. But I think that's the technology, right? So you can have a tablet that you put to your kid to learn, but that doesn't mean that it will replace you in the teaching procedure. So I think we are all the time behind. We are a human-centric technology society. We are all every time behind. So we have the power to actually design, to be philosophers, roboticists, artists, and everybody together to develop the application that we really want, not other possible futures that we really don't want, I think.
Okay. So, so you were talking, Pablo, a little bit about what's the next step in artificial intelligence. Was it this idea of a narrow artificial?
Yeah, well, narrow, it means that it's just short-sighted, so you cannot change to another domain, right? There are many fields that are happening. I will talk about mine that is easier for me, but there are many. But if you think about a mechanicistic way about the brain, right? So we think that it's also in the documentary talking about if the brain is a machine, we just have to understand how it is working to be able to replicate. So I always say intelligence will always happen in the intelligence that we think about humans whenever we discover how it works, right? Whenever we understand how the brain works, then we can replicate it because we can build these models, right? This will be just a matter of time. But we don't know exactly how it works. And there are many unknowns, but so robotics, it is something that people think that robotics only one line in the research, but robotics is like feeding from getting ideas from all the disciplines around it, and it's sensors, as Isa was telling him. You need sensor for tactile, for seeing better. You need algorithms, and I mean, what will be the next step? So, for instance, for me, will be that we are able to replicate how humans we adapt the incoming information of our body to interact with the world. For instance, I always talk about an interesting experiment from cognitive science, from cognitive psychology, that you know that you can embody an arm that is not yours just by sensory integration, right? So they put you like a plastic arm. It's called the rubber hand illusion. This famous aspect from the last century. So they put an arm, plastic arm, and you cannot see your arm, but they stimulate your hand and tactile in a tactile way, and also visually the plastic one. And there is a moment that you think that the hand that is plastic is your hand. Why is this happening? So why humans were so plastic? We didn't know that before. We thought that we are just already built, but no, we are all the time learning and adapting to the world. And this is the key point for adaptation. So for me, the next step should be how machines can adapt what they have, the models, the priors, the inductive bias that the designer put it when something happened in the world. And I will go further, and maybe this is also a concept in psychology and philosophy that's called ANC. ANC is that you are aware that you produce an effect in the world, okay? This is human, okay? You are, before I talk about body ownership, that is how you know where your body is in the world. And this is agency, that is, I push something and I know that I did it. And this is the basic of the responsibility of our society. How you really know that you did something, how they can persecute you for doing something bad. Everything is because there is something that tells you that you did this effect in the world. Robots, they cannot do this yet, okay? How they can arrive to this is a continuum. The same in humans is a continuum. It is not you just born and then you have it. No, it's a continuum. And it's a small steps. And what we are working right now is in the low level, but we are missing the abstraction part, no? How to go from, you learn to interact with the world, how you abstract this concept that then will be this creativity, right? This creativity will happen when you are able to abstract from the sensorimotor experience concepts. This is what we do. We have some, because we imagine, we create, if you say it in artificial intelligence world, we sample from our latent space, that is our brain, ideas that actually triggers these actions. No? So I think the next step that will happen in some years is to provide the robots with this ability to, with all the sensorization, with soft, safe robots, that they are able to interpret how they behave with the body in the world, but also they are able to identify the intentions of people that are in front of them, right? So I think that's the two ways to the social part and specifically machine learning hardcore body intelligence that we call. So we are missing the body intelligence.
Okay, I don't know if we have any more question.
In the meantime, I will ask you one question to Isa. I don't know if you talk with Ishiguro, with the Professor Ishiguro. You had the chance to talk with him.
A little bit, like when we were at the conference to shoot with him in Vienna, we talked a little bit, but I didn't shoot an interview with him, not with him, but yeah, he's many documentaries. I think I saw six other documentaries that had Ishiguro. So I was like, I didn't really want to make him like a central character in my film, even though he is such an interesting guy for sure.
No, because I wanted to say.
Some people think that was not Ishiguro, it was a replicant. who was
That's
giving.
right.
No, but it was
Very hard to differentiate.
I was a moment that I was making jokes of it, and now I see him as a genius, right? Because research is not about what we think about going to a company and developing a product. He's developing something for 100 years afterwards. And now you see in harmony, all his ideas in harmony, and I say, oh my God, this guy was a visionary, right?
Yeah.
But in the beginning, he was a crazy guy doing a replica of himself with in a robot, right? But now this is how research works. I think something that you will never expect that will work in the future. But I was impressed about always impressed about his thoughts that sometimes looks like crazy, but then it's real. It will happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he believes that human life is only sort of, organic life is only sort of an intermediate step to sort of artificial life in the future. These artificial beings, they will be able to travel, all through the universe and live forever. And we're just like a small sort of imperfect intermediate step. And so I think it shifts your perspective a lot. And I think that's what's really fascinating about it.
I have another question for Isa. You never tried to see the people interacting with the robots of Boston Dynamics, or did you try it? Or?
Oh yeah, we did, of course. Of course we did, but it was impossible. I mean, they do not give out shooting permits. Boston Dynamics, it's a big company. They really want to control all the images that go out of their robots themselves, and so there was no way to get a shooting permit from them. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
So Isa, I don't know if you would like to say a bit more about the filmmaking process. So did you have to move around the world to shoot different parts of the documentary? How long it took the filming and?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we did have to move around a bit. So, I mean, Japan, that was sort of obvious that we would have to go to Japan, or maybe South Korea is also big in robotics, humanoid robotics, and the US, of course. And we did want to shoot in Germany. Pablo, you asked before why we didn't really include a German sort of setting. We wanted to include sort of a kindergarten that was using a small robot as a sort of an English teacher for the kindergarten students. And that was a research project by the University of Bielefeld. But the problem was with the sort of all projects that were interesting in Germany, that they were not far enough developed yet. When we were shooting, they were still in the process of programming the robots, and I really wanted to be already in the field. I really wanted to have humans and robots already interacting together outside a laboratory. Because all the documentaries I had seen on robots, you see the robots always in the safety of scientists and the safety of labs, and for me I thought it would be a much more interesting and provocative effect if you see the robots out in the world already. That would trigger something in the viewers' minds, like you guys described it yourselves. Oh my God, they're already there, they're everywhere, they're already in the world, we're in the future already, kind of that. And so it was harder to find that in Europe, because even though Germany, for example, is very far developed in sort of robots that are in factories, the humanoid robots, the social robots, are in Europe a little bit behind, but I think they're trying to catch up now, as far as I could tell. And so, that determined on where we were shooting, of course. And I was working on the film for 3 years, from writing the first script to finishing in the editing room, pretty much. And I think we had about like 30 shooting days, something like that. Like 4 or 5 months in the editing room, just the usual kind of time frames for a long documentary, and we stayed with Chuck and Harmony for a week, and we stayed with the Japanese family also for roughly a week, I think. Yeah,
it's a pity that we didn't meet in Munich, because when I was there working, and the Technical University of Munich, they have a lot of robots. That is true that they are not putting the robots into the real world, and this is something that they have to develop.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to say one thing also, that ESA is showing a robotic part that is the social humanoid robots, right? But there are many, and for instance, I call it the hidden robotics, right? But there will be a moment that everything is robotic, and you can see the cars. You will not, you cannot imagine how much money they are putting into the cars to make them already a robotic AI system, right? So it will be not humanoid maybe, but it could be an Italian car, right? With consciousness, as Pablo was putting. But I think the companies, they are also putting money there, and they don't want to lose the race of this AI robotics that is happening. Still, of course, I think in Europe, as Isa was saying, it's slow to put money in something that is new, and they will do it in a different way than, for instance, China or Japan or United States. So.
Okay, so thank you very much for this gathering, and thank you for the documentary. It was incredible work and very, very hypnotic, as I said. It reminded me a little bit to 2001, the Kubrick's movie, his silences, and I liked it very much. Thank you very much, Isa, and thank you, Pablo, for accepting the invitation to this
My pleasure.
And I think we should say goodbye. Hope to see you again, perhaps in a different robotic context. Who knows?
In the real world, maybe.
Who knows?
At some point.
Hopefully. Actually, yeah. I was in Munich this past year. Hopefully, I will be in Munich in May. Super. Bye.
Thank you very much for the film, Isa, and also Pablo for the.
Yeah, thank you so much for the talk. That was great. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.